Welcome to the What's Your Truth podcast, the show that not only showcases the best of independent artists, but also explores what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. Today on the show, we have country rocker Brian Hogan. A true blend of the best in country, Brian's voice is the perfect blend of the sweet lushness of Elvis and the gruff, gravelly grind of the great Johnny Cash. From toe tapping, up-tempo two-stepping tunes to ballads so deep and soulful you can't help but get sucked in and taken for the ultimate ride, Brian is truly the top of the heap in the contemporary Western music world. Brian has been tearing up the Southern California club scene, playing top-shelf venues including Shenanigans Irish Pub, Joe's Great American, The Mix, and Gem City Grill. And he's been featured in publications including no less than LA Weekly, the LA Record, and the prestigious LA Times. He's a true mover and shaker, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Hogan.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How you doing? A little early in the morning for me.
No worries. I am doing absolutely fantastic. So let's roll into it, shall we?
Sure.
Amazing. So my first question for you is, how did you decide that you wanted to become a musician?
Oh man. Well, I've been writing songs most of my adult life. I just kind of fell into it. I've been singing since I could speak. So, walking down the street, I have my Walkman on. Boy, I just dated myself, and, it's into everything, started with Bing Crosby. Then I was introduced to Elvis, and from there, everybody else, because Elvis sang everybody else's stuff. And I always wanted to find out who it was, the original artist, how that started. It's in the genes, it's part of my DNA, in my family history. We're all basically artists, actors, musicians, writers, and so on. Going back to my great grandfather and I maybe even beyond that, and great grandmother. I don't know, but beyond that, I don't know. But pretty much that's it's just something I've always done. Anything artistic.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Wow, that's so cool. You have like like you said, you have a genealogy. It's not just
Yeah.
like you were raised in it, like you're literally your family line is all art. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I mean, I have an uncle who was a teen idol in the 50s. My father was an actor, as a Native American actor. After he got done fighting Japanese, he came here and he came back to the States and became an actor and did quite well. A lot of films. But my uncle Johnnie he was on a show called The Rifleman, and he had a bunch of top 40 hits, and he was approached by Delphi after the tragic ending of Richie Valens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yep.
Yeah, the gentleman who produced Richie Valens was looking for somebody and saw my uncle. I think he saw him on The Rifleman singing something. I don't know. I'm not quite sure, but approached him, and from there he cut a bunch of records and with Delphi, and so from there. Now my great grandfather, he was a concert master of the New York Philharmonic, and he came from Belgium, and my great grandmother was a first chair violinist, I believe, and then my grandmother was a piano. I don't know. It just goes on and on.
Yeah. Wow. Right on, man. So what was the first experience you remember having with music?
Oh my gosh. You mean as far as what turned me on to it, the first as a child going back?
Yeah, like first experience like ever, like dig deep. What's the first time you remember even becoming aware of music?
In school, when they would make us do the you're a grand old flag, that kind of stuff. They would when I was going through grammar school, they would make us do the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. I don't know if they do that still, but they did back then. And then they would teach us, the Marine song and all the patriotic songs. And so that was, yeah, and I loved it, and I just loved it. And so honestly, I was always growing up. I had a very chaotic childhood. and it was kind of, new schools all the time, and all of that. And so I was always looking for something to stand out from the other kids, and singing was a way to do it.
Mhm.
So I did talent shows. I impersonated Elvis for a bit. I was an Elvis impersonator for a brief bit.
That's fun.
But so that's what really, and then what really did it was watching the family film festival, and I just loved Bing Crosby. I mean, as a child, I loved it. My uncle Johnnie gave me a mixtape of Bing Crosby, and that kind of took it all from right there. It was like early jazz, and I just would listen to that on my little recorder, my little tape deck, all the time, sing along to it at night, and very. He's such a comforting voice. And then again, like I said, if I, I discovered once I saw Elvis movies, I think it was the first one was probably Jailhouse Rock, most likely, or
Mhm.
something like that. Something that really flipped my switch. And then he was the coolest thing I ever saw, you know.
Right on.
And that from there, just forget about it.
And the rest, as they say, is history. So, I have a feeling of at least some of this, but who are the biggest influences on your work and why?
Well, of course, Elvis Presley, first off, and primarily a lot of it's vocal with me, whether it's Elvis or Johnny Cash. I love the sound of his voice, and that's the first thing that turned me on when it comes to singing. He had such a versatile voice. I mean, he would, and also genres. He could just, he was traveling genres, and I love all kinds of music. I mean, it's just, uh, I love how he could just, do rockabilly, rock and roll, country, gospel, and just do it. The things he could do with his voice. So he's probably my biggest influence. Uh, Frank Sinatra is another influence. Dean Martin is also an influence. They're mostly vocal influences. Bing Crosby, as I said before. Um, Sam Cooke.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I love Sam Cooke. Um, you know, uh, and then as far as writing is concerned, Chuck Berry, probably the biggest influence I have. He's very like the Shakespeare of rock and roll. I mean,
I like
I
that.
love a clever lyric. I like Paul Simon a lot. Um, uh, Irving Berlin, I like him. Yeah, so those are the guys that influence my songwriting. Um, and why, I really love a clever lyric and story. And a lot of my songs are story. A lot of them are true,
Hmm.
based on some event or usually a love interest of some kind. Uh, Spurs me or something somebody says to me. It's all very organic. I don't really sit down and purposely write. I find that when I do sit down to write, it usually sucks. But I try to force it, you know. Um, but yeah, so those are my biggest influences. If it's clever, man, and it's got a great story, I'm in, you know.
Awesome. And then what's the weirdest thing that's ever inspired you?
Musically
Eh, eh,
or
whatever that means.
the oddest one I'd say was one day I was walking through the dog park. A lot of my songs were crafted in the dog park.
Hmm, I
And
like
I was
that.
walking through the dog park with a friend of mine, and I think I have coffee, sorry.
No worries.
And we were all talking. It was just a group of us, and she said, one of my friends said to me as we were walking, because it was a sunny day, it was a beautiful, glorious day, and we were all walking through the park. And she said, if I hadn't went away, the sun would always shine. And it just stuck with me as, I went to the car, and I got down, sat down with my guitar and just wrote this song. If I had my way, just kind of just came and incorporated that lyric. What would I have my way doing? It ended up becoming an anti-war song,
Yeah.
like a protest song in a way, in an odd way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was I'd say the oddest one. There was another one quite recently where I was the events were weird that led to it, where I was doing a festival in Tehachapi, the Western Swing Out, and I was watching a gal dance, and I, I, somebody came up to me and, what do you think of that? And I was like, wow, oh, definitely. And I, and I went back to my room, and I just kept that image was just still in my head. And I had my guitar, I picked it up, and I wrote a lyric. I wrote actually a melody and a lyric, and then just kind of set it aside. And then later on, crafted a song. And it's the only time I've actually, and I had the song sitting there, and it was pretty much done. It just needed some stuff. The chorus was kind of weak. Um, so a friend of mine, Ted Russell Camp, I contacted him, and we had set up a songwriting thing. I'd never written with anybody, and I knew he was a good person to write with, just because he's such a great writer. And so I met with him, and we finished off the song. It's the most recent one. It's not been released yet. It's been recorded, but it just hasn't been released. I have a whole lot of recordings that are sitting there that I recorded throughout the recent apocalypse.
Yeah, right.
Apocalypse. I think it was 1 and 2.
Right on. Yeah, seriously. Right on, man. Oh.
So those are the kind of events, though. There's just I wrote a song, Liliana. That song, every word of it is true. Like, every event that happened in that song is a true song. How that person made me feel is true. Like, I was on the phone with her. She was telling me about her boyfriend. We just started talking on the phone before we actually became a date, and she ended up being my girlfriend for a number of years. And she had her middle name was Liliana, and I asked her what her middle name was on that conversation. She said, I had my guitar in my hand, and she said, Liliana. And I just said, oh, that's such a lyrical name. And hung up the phone and wrote that song based on the events that she was, that I had a thing for this person,
Right on.
Lovely, lovely person. One of my favorites. One of my favorite humans.
Excellent. And then how has your art influenced other people?
I don't know that it has. They dance and they're happy.
Hey, that's fair. That's observable.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope someday to influence people. If I have influenced other artists, I don't know that nobody's verbalized it to me. That would be. I'm hoping that it makes them happy. That's my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is: do you like it? Are you happy? Are you tapping your feet? Does it make you feel good? Does it spur some kind of happy emotion within you? So that's, so if I'm influencing anybody, please, I'd love to know.
Right on. Well, see, so for everyone watching, drop a comment.
Right.
And do you have any pre-show or pre-studio rituals?
Not really. Not really. I know that I know a lot of people do. I don't. I sing. On my way to the gig, I sing. It kind of warms up my voice, and then I go do it, and then do 3 hours or 4 hours or however long it is, and it seems to serve me well for the last 20 years. So.
Well, hey, if it's working, man, and it seems like it is totally. So, amen. And then what risks, if any, have you personally taken for the sake of your music?
Well, every show is a risk. So, I mean, they're all a risk. You can always, people can throw things at you all the time, I don't know that I've taken any real risks. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. But I never feel like I don't look at my music as a risk. So maybe it's the way I look at it. Maybe it's the way I'm perceiving things. I feel like it's more of a cleansing thing for me, more of an organic thing. So I don't look at it all like a risk. But like I said, any show I do, I suppose, is a risk. Maybe I could fall down a flight of stairs or something, and people could hate me.
Fair point. But I do love what you said, though, about how it's a matter of how you perceive it. And I mean, that's so true that And I feel like as artists, we have this ability and this power to alter or change things just even by the way we perceive it and communicate it, and I mean, it doesn't have to be a risk per se. Like you said, there's a cathartic cleansing factor of it for you. Like it really is whatever your illusion makes it. So I think
Right.
that's a really great point to make. And
Yeah.
then what is the craziest risk you've ever seen another artist take for their craft?
Mm. Getting on stage. No, I'm just kidding. Have I seen the craziest risks I've seen? Uh, you know, I again, I don't know because I don't know what it is they're risking. I don't for them personally, so it's hard for me to say. Uh, I do know that the other artists that work with me, the ones around me, are taking the risk just by performing with me. I mean, I do hire a lot of guys. I have an extensive uh, an extensive
Well,
contact, and so I was going to say Rolodex.
yeah.
Way to date myself. Um, and I use guys that play jazz. I use guys that play metal. I use guys that play, and a lot of them are jumping out of their comfort zone with me because I mean, while I use country guys, I don't tend to use country guys as much as I do jazz or hard rockers. And they it's a challenge, I think, for especially the guitar players. Um, but I use great guys too at the same time. They're versatile. So, but I guess they're risking. Um, but it's hard for me to say what somebody else's risk is, uh, really, that I've seen anybody take.
Well, fair point. So, what's one thing about you that would shock everyone to know?
That I'm really 4'1". No.
The
Uh,
Danny DeVito of rock.
I don't wear underwear. Uh, what would be one thing that people would talk to know? Well, that people would be shocked to know that I have no formal education, probably, and that's just because of my upbringing. I was in growing up. I was in. I lost my dad at 2, and so I got to know my father through TV. Believe it or not, like in other words, of watching TV. And so my dads are basically my role models are basically Jimmy Stewart, because I had so many different male role models go in and out of my life. So, but it really, when it got time to get, but as I progressed through school, I was uninterested by the time I got to junior high. I just didn't, I was lagging. So by the time I was done with school, my education was in the toilet. And I ended up working in a bookstore, purposely searching that out because uh, my reading level was so poor, you know. And so now I have this extensive vocabulary, but back then I was, yeah. So I'm kind of a self-educated person. Wouldn't
Right
say
on.
uneducated at this point.
Right on. But smart move on your part, doing like going to a bookstore and just kind of teaching yourself to read. That was really smart.
Yeah, honestly, I've always done that. So for instance, I've always faced things. I've never ran from anything. I don't run from things that challenge me. I've never been a person who runs from things. Like for instance, uh, when I was in the 5th grade, they had the new school I was at. They had a talent contest, and I knew I could sing, and I knew that I could sing Elvis songs. So I went and signed up for it, and I was a new kid in school. None of my siblings were in my school because we were all separated. So I went and signed. I just signed up for it, and I won and I did it. And actually, I won second place in the talent contest,
Oh,
which is ironic because Elvis won second place, I believe, doing Old Shep in his talent contest when he was a kid.
Oh,
I
funny.
think. I think. I get all the lore mixed up sometimes.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I've always if it's interested me enough or made me feel special or I knew would enhance my self image, I went for it. I don't. And maybe I say yes too many times. Actually, maybe I should say no sometimes. I'm glad I said yes to this, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said too. What you just said again is really key. Just the not being afraid to confront that which challenges you, but hit it, face it head on. And I mean, I think that's how we all grow and get better as artists, especially for
Yeah.
sure. So, what is one thing or one tool that you absolutely cannot live without as an artist, and why?
Oh well, that would my voice. I mean, God, if my voice went, uh, well, I could always fall back on drawing or something or some other artistic endeavor, but I would say my voice would probably be that would be a blow that I love to sing. I love to sing. Sing is just I'll do that until it's probably my last breath. You know. I'll be
No,
singing.
man, artist till death, literally.
Yeah, you know. But as far as like mechanical instrument, it would be my guitar for sure.
Right on. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, it's what I use to write. I'm not a great guitar player. I'm a rhythm guitar player. I'm a competent rhythm guitar player, but I'm not a great rhythm guitar player. Nor am I. I'm self-taught.
Yeah.
Everything I do is self-taught. It's just, again, it's probably because of schooling. It's because of my lack of. I had to learn. I had to go do it myself. And so everything from singing to, I once had vocal lessons. And I had a few of them. My girlfriend at the time was like, "You should learn at least where you're coming from." And I took a few lessons, and then I found it was interfering with my performance because I was thinking about what I was doing while I was performing, and it
Right.
wasn't organic. So I cut that out. I already knew what I was doing anyway. So at that point, I was just paying somebody to tell me what I already knew instinctually, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then what has been the most difficult piece of music for you to create, and why?
there's a song that I wrote called "She's My Life." And I held on to that. So I wrote that song, the Liliana, the same gal that inspired Liliana, inspired a song called She's My Life. And I held on to that song for many, many, many years because I wasn't sure what to do with it. I have another song currently that I wrote recently that I don't know what to do with right now that I'm sitting on. And who knows, it could be another 15 years before anything happens with that particular song. Um, but because it's so far from my genre. It's
Yeah.
just they come as they come. I don't know. I don't intention. But this one song, "She's My Life," and at first I thought I would do it a very Jim Croce type thing with guitars, because
Mhm.
Jim Croce was mostly guitars and acoustic stuff. And it is not within my genre of music that I'm typical rock and roll type country rockabilly. It's more of a singer songwriter, John Denver type Danny song, you know. Um, very pretty song. And then one day I was uh, during the pandemic, I was watching YouTube, and a friend of mine, I was watching her show. She would do these little Aubrey Richmond. I don't know if you know Aubrey.
I
You might,
actually do know. Yes, I do know. I believe I've met her, and I know her through people as well. Yes, I know who Aubrey Richmond is for sure.
yeah, and she was playing fiddle. She was doing her thing on the fiddle, and it dawned on me that that's what the song needs. The song needed to just be bare bones, guitar and violin, and that was it. So I went in and with Dave Raven, who engineered all the recordings I was doing throughout pandemics, and I hate that word.
I know.
Uh, I like apocalypse. It's just funnier.
Yeah. Right.
um, but I went in I went in Dave Raven. I got Aubrey and basically laid the track down, and then discovered that it needed something on the low end. So got a hold of Maya Bloomfield, who then laid some cello down on it. So it's the three of us on this song. That was a challenging song for me because I picked it, and I'm not used to picking. I mean, I'm not really a picker, you know, uh, finger picking
Yeah,
on
yeah.
song and keeping the rhythm on it. Took me a while to make sure that before I went in to record it, that it was on time, that it was consistent, and all of that. But that was probably the most difficult because it was also bare bones. And
Yeah.
I find that the less you add, the harder it is to make it sound perfect, you know, or to get past my palate at least. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
totally. That makes total sense. Yeah, because I mean, there's less things to hide behind if one part's not cutting it. So 100%, that makes total sense. But
Yeah,
also, those tend to be the most powerful pieces of music too, I think.
yeah. It's a beautiful song. I can't wait until it's released. I just haven't released it. I gave it to the music placement guy, and he's stopping it. You know,
Oh,
so
right on.
right now we're gonna release it. I'm just probably spring is when everything will get dropped, most likely. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay, here's a fun question. If you were going to write a book about your career up to this point, what would you title it?
Uh, what would I title? What the hell?
Eh,
That's what I title it.
no, I like
What
that.
the
I kind
hell?
of like that actually.
What's
Right on.
wrong with me? I don't know.
That's awesome. Hey, I think I kind of like what the hell, and I think a lot of artists can kind of relate to that at any given point in their career. Like, what the hell? What the
Right,
hell is going on? What the hell is this world doing? What the hell am I doing?
right.
That's cool, man. And then, what are your plans for world domination?
You know, it's interesting because I don't, I don't, I don't do what I do with the intention of becoming famous, or even, and maybe that's why I'm not famous. I don't know, but my intention isn't to become rich and famous. Rich would be nice, but famous, to dominate the charts and the world is not why I do it. I do it as a release, as a creative. It's creative flow for me. So I really haven't developed a plan of action. I just kind of just going, and maybe that's why I haven't gotten beyond local notoriety into national, world, whatever. Maybe it is my intention. I believe, and it's hard because once you start into that whole, that thought of, I just want to create. I just want to create. I want to keep writing. I want to keep creating. Give it to the sync deal guy, the licensing guy, and then move on to the next one and keep doing that. Um, and if something comes of that, that would be awesome. That would be wonderful. I'd love to tour the world. That would be, well, I don't know about right now, but that would be really great. That would be really, really great. But maybe I need to come up with a plan other than, I just want to finish the next song.
Hey, fair point. I mean, sometimes that's all the plan you need.
Yeah.
And then
You
I
know,
got, oh, go ahead.
I'm finding that a lot of, it's like with Elvis Presley. Um, I mean, of course, you're talking about a tremendous, charismatic, talented figure, but at the same time, everything is timing with that guy. It's timing. The Beatles, the same thing. It's timing. You being in the right spot at the right time, just doing their craft, and then something happens. Somebody walks in. Somebody picks something up. And they're just kind of just doing it to do it because they love it, and they're wanting to be famous, of course, because everybody deep down, you want some notoriety. You do want that, or else you wouldn't do it also. But ultimately it's timing, man. Everything is timing, and with Elvis it's timing all the way. It's even down at a spiritual level of timing. I mean, just, when you hit, you hit. When you happen to record, that's a right formula. You happen to record You happen to record Crying in the Chapel 5 years later. You're bugging frickin' RCA to record another gospel record, and they won't let you do it. And 5 years later, they happen to drop Crying in the Chapel. And so that leads to them going, oh, okay, well, there is a market for this. It's sold millions of records. Hey, go ahead and record another. And then you record How Great Thou Art, and you get 3 Grammys. It's timing. It's like a weird set of timing, you know.
No, 100%. That's so true. And then and I have one more question for you, and then just to revisit my introduction to this show. So again, this show not only showcases the best of independent artists, it also explores what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. So Brian, what's your truth?
What's my truth? You know, my truth, my purpose in life, honestly, is to make other people's lives more enjoyable. And that's my truth. That's why I'm here. That's my purpose. Honestly, if I can leave the world, you know, with something for people to look at and smile and feel good, or then I know I've lived a good life. If I can just leave something behind, you know, all this stuff that I've created, it's out there. It's out there. It's on Spotify, SoundCloud, all of that stuff. It's out there. So it's out there. Somebody could pick it up and listen to it, and one day, 20 years from now, go, that guy, wow, you know, I love this song. I love Lover's Game. I love, you know what I mean, all these songs. So that's what motivates me. That's my truth, you know, just to bring enjoyment to people's lives.
That's incredible. And it's a phenomenal purpose. And I mean, you know, it's simple and it's fundamental, but that's so powerful, you know, just to be able to touch people and do something to improve them in some way. That's awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here. This is incredible. Before we do end off, I wanted to give you 60 seconds. Anything you want to plug, all things Brian Hogan. Floor is yours. Fire away.
Yeah. You know what? I do have a record coming out, so just look for that. You can go on to brianhoganmusic.com if you want to look at pictures, videos, hear some music, purchase music if you like. The stuff that's on there is mostly demos. So, but it's still good stuff. Still really good stuff. Let's see here. What else? I do have a show. I don't know when this is going to air.
It's probably going to air sometime in like March, April.
In March, April. So in April, the end of April, I'll be doing Tehachapi, the Western Swing Out, which is a bunch of artists. If you like Western Swing, I'll kick it off on Friday night. It's during the 3-day weekend. Is that Labor Day or I'm not quite sure what we.
Oh no, Labor Day.
End of May.
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day weekend. It starts on Friday night. I'll be kicking it off on Friday night. Get your tickets for that. There'll be a link on my website, and you can also visit westernswingout.com. And then follow me on Instagram. You'll find me at Brian Hogan Band on Instagram. I'm the guy in the cowboy hat, and there is another Brian Hogan, and I'm coming for you, man.
Oh boy.
He does jazz. I think it's instrumental jazz stuff. Well, I think there are a few Brian Hogans, but quite a common name. Didn't realize that. But let me see here. So you can find me on YouTube and all of that. People put stuff up all the time, you know, and then I have some stuff that I've loaded onto my YouTube. But so and then look for the record. It'll drop in. It's the title of the record is "Take Me With You." Working on cover art right now. So, and then there'll be some singles dropping after that initial drop. So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, again, thank you so much for being here on a Saturday morning. It was really awesome, really incredible insights. And, For everyone that's watching, this has been the What's Your Truth podcast. We will see you on the next episode. Later.
Yeah, you follow your own rules and you preach them on to me. But you don't think before you act, and you ain't got no business with me. You don't know. But tell me what's your truth? Oh, what's your truth?